Okay, I'm going to get going because I know sometimes I can talk, and I apologize in advance that it is all me for the first 45 minutes. Hopefully, you don't get sick of me, but I promise there are some really exciting presentations that are not me coming up later. So happy to present you with a brief community update. So this is the, kind of the current state of Fedora, the community as it stands today. We have approximately 300 known installations from around the world. We say approximate because this number comes from a somewhat outdated but a self-report registry that is hosted by our organizational home lyricist. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But, obviously recognizing that Fedora is an open source program, we do not have, concrete information on where it's being used, how it's being used, what versions, et cetera, et cetera. So we're reliant on the tools that we have available to us. So last time we pulled a report out of this registry, we were sitting at just over 350 known installations. So fairly large, I would say, good footprint. What we do know, though, is that our users are very diverse, both in institution type and size, and the ways that our users are implementing the software, how people are using it. So that's one of the great features of Fedora, though. We often say that it's its flexibility. So this to us is kind of proof of concept that is true. We know that no two installations or no two implementations are exactly alike, but this really gives us a rich complement of types of users in our community and allows us to really see that Fedora is being used as it was intended, that flexible nature. So, we have a really deep kind of user base that is doing some very unique and interesting things with it. We also have an active team of committers and technical contributors who meet regularly to continue the ongoing maintenance and upkeep and the development of the software. They're the ones that are completing the tickets when you raise issues, they're fixing bugs, and a lot of times they're the first ones to be answering any support questions that come through Slack or on our listservs. We're super grateful for their efforts, and if you see them around this week, I would encourage you to give them a big thanks from us. But a lot of the heavy lifting that's done from the technical side is thanks to this group of technical committers and contributors. Over the last year, we as a community have focused on really trying to create some more ways to contribute to the community. So not just technical contributions, we recognize all types of contributions. And especially, welcoming of those that feel themselves not as technically inclined. We want to encourage them to, you to come into the community and find a space where you can actively give back. We always have a need for that. So there's more on that coming in a little bit, but just know that no offer of support is ever going to be turned away. There are numerous ways that you can give back and contribute to this community, and we're always welcome of any offers that you have. And lastly, Fedora has shown a really strong resurgence in its presence on the conference circuit, which is very exciting. Our users are coming out in full force to discuss their work, talk about their implementations, and share their implementations with the broader repository community, which is phenomenal. I've always said that users talking about what they're doing is a stronger message to other users than, say, the program team going out and talking about Fedora at a presentation. People like to see what other people are doing because then they can envision themselves in that situation. So that's my kind of encouragement to you all to think about the places and the ways that you can go out and share your work, mention Fedora, talk about Fedora. I am always willing to support or assist with writing conference proposals. If you have an interest in going and talking about Fedora somewhere, that is something that I'm certainly always open to. From a technology standpoint, we are currently on version 6.5.0. 6.5.1 is nearly ready to go, and by the end of this month should be ready to be released. Dan is going to talk about that a little bit more with the technology related talk later on this week. But at a high level, we're always actively resolving bugs. We're developing features that are requested by community members. And we're really just working to ensure that the software is meeting your needs and doing what it's supposed to. So this is us. This is the program team. I introduced myself. My name's Arran, and I am the program manager. So the Fedora team, as you'll see, is very small. Dan Field is our program developer, and today is actually his first day of being full-time on the program, which is very exciting for us. We ultimately are responsible for maintaining program operations. We write all the communications. We're essentially here to make sure that everything is running like a well-oiled machine. So I mentioned our active committer team and technical team, and this is our current active list of individuals who are supporting us. So Ben Pennell from UNC Chapel Hill, Jared Wicklow from the University of Manitoba, Damian Katz from Villanova, Dorn Shalvey from National Library of Medicine, Calvin Shu from the National Library of Medicine, Thomas Bernhardt from Docu Team, and James Alexander from the Open University. And there's always an opportunity for your name to hit this list. We're obviously always looking for ways and individuals to expand this group. There's lots of opportunities to get involved, and we'll talk about this. But we would love to see your name here. So I do just want to talk for a moment about the relationship that exists between Lyrasis and Fedora, because a lot of times we get asked, how does that work? What does that look like? So I'm going to give you a brief rundown here. Bridget Almas is going to speak next about organizational home, the model that exists at Lyrasis and the work that she's doing there. But generally, kind of as an introduction, I guess, and at a high level, Lyrasis serves as Fedora's organizational home. So what that means is that Lyrasis supports us and our program by providing us with critical infrastructures and operational components so that we can continue to do our work on program-related activities. So what that means is that with an organizational home, I have the ability to draw on all of the resources and expertise that exist at Lyrasis, i.e. grant services, marketing and communications, fiscal services, things like that. And we can, in our kind of relationship and in this organizational home model, we rely on Lyrasis to supply us with that stuff so that I can focus on doing things to grow and continue to support the program. Some of the infrastructure and operational elements could include things like managing and maintaining our wiki, supporting us through our Zoom account and website hosting of the Fedora website, things like that. Lyrasis also supports us by handling all of our fiscal elements. So membership renewals, billing, invoicing, all of that is taken care of by the staff at Lyrasis. And then they also handle all HR services related to Dan and my employment. So in this way, they're able to do those things for us so that I can, focus on community and Dan can focus on technology. And so, while Lyrasis serves us in this capacity and in this model, we as a program still get to operate independently. So we can do as we see fit for our users. We're responsible for maintaining our own, model for financial sustainability. And we operate under the direction of our governance group. So we operate independently from Lyrasis in that respect. And so we are able to do that because of this organizational home model. And we're not the only program at Lyrasis that is set up this way. So we do have some other communities that exist alongside us. Some of them you probably recognize. So there's DSpace, Archive Space, Collection Space, and Vivo. And we all operate within the community supported programs and technology division at Lyrasis. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Clarify that. But this is the Fedora community. So I mentioned Fedora governance being, helping set the priorities, et cetera, for the program. This is how the community is kind of structured. So obviously you, the users, are at the heart of the community. And you can see here, though, that governance works collaboratively with the program team and, some of the individuals at Lyrasis to ensure that program priorities are being met and that they are acting in the best interest and the interest of users at large. So they're really that liaison between the community and the program team as we work to, further the Fedora community. I mentioned that we're able to draw on the expertise and resources from within Lyrasis through that organizational home and relationship, but ultimately our actions and what we're able to do in terms of development efforts is all realized by our technical teams that we have with us. So that's a little high-level overview of governance in our community. Fedora governance itself is predominantly made up of representatives from paying member institutions. So the seats are allocated based on the membership level contribution or the membership contribution level that is made. So all governance members do have to be elected to their seats, though, and once they are elected, they serve a 2-year term. We do, though, hold intentional space on Fedora governance for community members to get involved. So there are 2 community at-large seats that are held on the governance board for non-paying community members who have expressed an interest in being involved and have shown, commitment to the community through different activities or different engagement opportunities. And then also, in an effort to remain connected to our partner communities, like Samvera, Islandora, OCFL, we also maintain technical liaison seats, which can be filled by partner community representatives so that we can ensure that, our work is aligned with what's happening in those communities and that we have this very open line of communication between the 2 of us. So with elections recently completed, this is our current serving governance group. This year's governance group is led by Kate Dowie from the University of Maryland Libraries as our chair and Scott Prater from the University of Wisconsin-Madison as our chair-elect. So I just want to run you through some highlights really quick, things that we've accomplished in the last year. I'm going to say highlights because we did a lot of things, but I don't have forever. So one of the biggest things that we are excited to share is the launch of our newly redesigned website. So fedorarepository.org. This was a cross-community project that was sponsored by Lyrasis. So this is that organizational home model coming back into play. So we worked with our partner programs at Lyrasis to modernize and update all of our community websites. So we hired an external UX UI designer to come in and redesign the websites, launch them in a more modern feel that's more reflective of our growing community. We were also really fortunate to be able to add accessibility compliance to the work that the designer did. So the websites are all accessible and meet accessibility standards. And we're also very excited that with this came an updated privacy policy and GDPR compliance for all of the websites. So any form submissions are now GDPR compliant for our international users. The other thing that we did last year was we released our community roadmap. So this was the result of a long 2-year process of strategic planning work that involved community conversations, it involved technical evaluation, it involved, many, many discussions to get to the point of being able to put some priorities on a roadmap with timelines associated with them based on what we were able to achieve with the teams that we had and what were high priority items for the community. So on the roadmap are technical and non-technical tasks that are scheduled or kind of slated to be completed within the next 18 to 24 months and help keep us focused. So anything that we're kind of thinking about working on needs to tie back to the roadmap because this is what the community has told us that they would like to see happen. So we haven't had a roadmap since pre-Fedora 6 times. So this was long overdue and we're very excited to be able to have that accessible and available to everybody. The other thing that was very exciting is this return to in-person engagement activities. So I mentioned last year's showcase led to this year's showcase with exceeding number of registrations. I'm just so happy with the response that we've received to this. We've also had really strong representation from our users at community or at conferences around the world. And we look to do the same. So any opportunities, if you've got some things in mind, places you'd like to go, you'd like to see us, please reach out and let us know. We are also super fortunate to be able to have our first in-person user group meeting this year, last year, just in June at Open Repositories in Sweden. We had really good turnout there. It was nice to be able to connect all in person and see each other throughout that event. And we look forward to doing more of this. So that is on our radar, definitely. Another highlight was upgrading to paid Slack for the Fedora workspace. This is something that we have not had in the past. We were on a free nonprofit account, which was fine. It was meeting our needs, but the technical team had asked that we propose to make the move to a paid Slack account so that we could retain all of our conversation and message history. So what we've gained from this is a really deeper and historical record of all of the support things and conversations that have happened in the past. And so now we have this really great tool and this great resource that we can use and that the community can draw on. And then again, I mentioned it kind of just in passing, but one of the exciting things is being able to see Dan Dan's time moved from a part-time capacity to, we say full-time, but he's 80% of his time is dedicated to the Fedora program. So for anybody that wasn't aware, previously Dan was only working half-time on the Fedora project, which obviously was, creating some time restrictions and barriers to getting things done in a timely manner. But now we're super fortunate to be able to see him up to 80% time on the project, and now a full-time employee over at Lyrasis. And then the last thing I just want to mention is that if you look around the room here today, you can see the impact of our outreach and engagement. We have a ton of you here today, a ton of registrations, and this is all, new and returning users, leaning in on our communication channels, asking questions, coming out of the woodwork to talk about implementations. And for us, this is probably one of the most exciting things, seeing our community grow and expand. And, for us, it just shows the resilience of our community and the dedication that you all have for Fedora. So, from me, thank you. And from the program, thank you as well. So at current work, again, highlight reel, we don't have all day. So a couple things I just want to shout out here. So we're in the process of preparing for version 6.5.1, which I mentioned, and that's going to include, among other things, several bug fixes and some community requested features that are tied into there, but it's also going to serve to update us to the newest OCFL Java version, which is 2.1.0. And with this, there's noted improvements to S3 write speeds. So we're really looking forward to that release coming out in the coming weeks. And then after 6.5.1 is out, our goal there is to turn to some work on dependency updates that are needed for FC Repo Core. So our focus is, and always has been, on kind of the security and maintenance of Fedora. And as such, we need to spend the intentional time and focus on getting these critical dependency updates done so that we can continue to provide safe, secure, and robust piece of software. So that is what we will be focusing on next. And again, Dan's going to talk about that later on, but that's what we have on the go. Otherwise, we are also holding a documentation workathon. So documentation is an element that's listed on the Fedora roadmap. And so we're holding our first ever workathon, which is scheduled to take place on Thursday from 12:45 till 2 p.m. Eastern. So there is no deep technical knowledge of Fedora required to do this. We have a very simple worksheet that we're going to go through live with, tech team members. Dan and myself will be there. But essentially, we need to review all of the Fedora 6 documentation. We're going to be clicking on URLs, clicking links, making sure they're active, checking for dead macros on the wiki. So it's really just intended to be a live working session that we're going to go through. So I'm hoping that many of you will join us for that. Again, you don't have to pre-register for that. It's just going to be in the same Zoom room, and we will have everything that you need there for you if you're coming to participate. So the other thing that we are working on is, I mentioned at the very start of this presentation that we have roughly 300 known users of Fedora around the world, and that's based on an old registry. So with the launch of the new website, we actually moved the Fedora registry over to that new website. So now we are in the process of collecting new, accurate, up-to-date information on Fedora implementations from around the world. So what we want to be able to do here is have a database and a resource that others can go and see who is using Fedora, where it's being used, and how it's being used around the world. So I will have a link to do that. I'm, kind of encouraging everybody here today to go and register your instance there so that we can really see the most accurate footprint of where we're being represented around the world. And maybe I'm actually just going to do that right now. Here we go. Let's see here. So that is the link to the registry. If anybody is following along and interested in doing that live, you can go ahead there. And then other work that we're doing is there is a website content working group that is formed, just a small group of us looking to maintain, add content to the new website because we're fully responsible for what's there now. So we're able to go in. There is some targeted content that we'd like to create. So if anybody has interest in helping write content and getting involved there, we'd love to have you. And then there's also our cross-community collaborative work. So as I mentioned before, we intentionally, recognizing where Fedora sits in a technology stack, we always are intentionally working with our partner communities. So we try to be involved in different ways with those other communities. And so one of the things that we do is we participate in different working groups. So there's the Hyrax Fedora 6 working group over in the Samvera community. So this is a group of users that have, would like to see a pathway to migration for Hyrax users looking to have Fedora 6 and Hyrax 5. So Daniel Pierce and Rebecca Cuddy are going to be giving a presentation on the outputs of that working group later on. And then there's also the LAC GLAM working group from the Islandora community, so the Liberal Arts Colleges GLAM working group, and that is just a small group of users looking to support each other in the work that they're doing with their Islandora stacks, and we participate there to support in any way that Fedora, if there's Fedora related questions, we're there and available to help those users. And then the last one that we work with is the OCFL Java Implementers Group. Obviously, Fedora 6 uses the OCFL Java implementation. So we participate there to ensure the ongoing maintenance, upkeep, and support for the OCFL Java library. And then this is probably one of my favorite slides, actually. So this is all of the known users who are on or migrating to Fedora 6. So the best part about this for me is that this list keeps growing. So when Fedora 6 was first released, we had literally a handful or less of institutions that were on or even considering migrations to Fedora 6. And then I looked at the slide from last year's virtual showcase, and there was 17 institutions on this list, and now we're up to 26, which is incredible. So, and these are just the ones that we know of. So if your institution isn't on this list and should be, or you'd like to be added, you can either reach out to myself or you can update your implementation in the registry, and I'll be able to pull it from there. But I just think that the growth of this slide for me shows such exciting kind of commitment from our Fedora community. And I think this is something that we should be really proud of. And then the last thing I wanted to just share is the different ways that we communicate in the Fedora community. Obviously, you made your way here from some sort of communication, whether that was an email on a listserv, Slack, some other mailing list that you're involved in. But this is typically how we communicate within the Fedora community. So I mentioned the Fedora Slack workspace. So this is actually one of the fastest and easiest ways to reach other users. Dan and I are regularly on there. The committer team is there as well. But there's also hundreds of other users from around the world, all kind of watching what goes through there. And I usually recommend this as a first place to go if you do need technical support or help in any way. It tends to be the fastest way to get a response. We do have listservs as well, but Slack just tends to be the way that our community responds best, if you will. So if you aren't a member of Fedora Slack, you can feel free to join us there. I'm just going to drop in the chat a link to join Fedora Slack so that if you would like to. There is also, I mentioned at the beginning, that Slack channel for today's or for the showcase, so you can join us there. Some recommended channels are the general migrations and tech channels. They're obviously specific to the different types of questions that you might have or the different conversations that are happening. But feel free to poke around. There are the mailing lists that I mentioned, the Google Group listservs. So you can sign up to any one of those. And a lot of times it is communications that I am sending that are relevant to the different groups that are there. But what I will just say is, another great way to contribute to the community is answering any of those questions, answering questions that you see come through on Slack, answering messages that you see come through on the listserv. It doesn't have to just be the tech team or Dan responding to those questions. We have this wealth of knowledge in our users, and we would love to be able to draw on that more readily. So don't ever feel like it's not your place to answer a question. We would absolutely appreciate any support that you can offer to your fellow community members. So feel free to dig in there. And then there's also the monthly newsletter. So this is, I promise, it's just once a month. We send an email, and sometimes not even. It's a low traffic mailing list. You can sign up for it on the Fedora website. but it just gives a nice little recap of things that have happened in the community, along with maybe important event details of things coming up. I always do a section on our partner communities, what's happening there, but just, a really easy, low lift way to stay involved and in the know. So otherwise, please, there's always our weekly technical calls. So those take place every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We do share the Zoom link and agenda in the Slack channels every week in advance of the meetings. So newcomers are certainly always welcome at these technical meetings. We call it a tech meeting, but anybody is welcome to join us. We do save space at the start of each meeting for pop-up topics or questions. So if you are working on something and you run into problems, you need a quick answer, just drop in at a tech meeting, and we're more than happy to answer that. And then you can pop out, so you don't have to feel like you need to sit through ticket review and things like that. We've intentionally done that to make space for users to drop in. And then if you're interested in joining that website content working group, just reach out to me and I can let you know about about the ways to get involved there. Okay, so last but not least, how do we do it and why do we do it? So the answer to that is really, to both of those questions, is you. So you, the community, the users, you're the heart and soul of this whole community. And without you, without your contributions and your dedication to this piece of software and all of these lovely faces in the room, we wouldn't be successful. And so, we value certainly all types of contributions. One way, though, that you can pledge your commitment to the kind of future sustainability of Fedora is by becoming a member. So membership is the only source of income that the program actually has to be able to continue to support the program itself, as well as any of the kind of critical development work that needs to happen and takes place every day. Membership certainly can take many forms, and Lyrasis is very gracious enough to be able to accommodate both kind of annual and one-time commitments from institutions in support of Fedora. So I urge you to consider, how you or how your institution can make a difference. We're a small team, but we're certainly a very strong community, I will say, and we appreciate each and every one of you and what you bring to the community. So thank you in advance. Happy to chat with anybody about these opportunities. If you have questions, I'm certainly always available. So with that, that's me. Thank you. Hopefully that wasn't too tedious. I've got 5 minutes, so I'm just going to hold. Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that in the chat. Are there any questions?